Hi guys. I am doing a quick video here to answer a question that seems to be coming up a lot. An agent emailed me and said, when do I need these documents? Do I need both of these documents, the compensation agreement between brokers and the addendum regarding brokers' fees on every deal? And it was a good question. And so let's just talk through when you need them. And I think it's a question that even our OCs are having. And so we're just going to walk through it and go from there. I'm going to share it first. You need the compensation agreement between brokers anytime that the seller has agreed in the listing agreement to pay the buyer's broker some commission. If it's 1%, if it's 3%, if it's 5%, like whatever it is, you're going to need this document. And here's why. The compensation agreement between brokers serves in place of what the MLS used to provide. So in MLS, it used to say the percentage of buyer agent commission that was being offered, and that was a unilateral binding offer of compensation. Now that that's gone, we have no way of knowing what the seller is offering, nor having it documented for us that this is what the seller has agreed to pay when we write an offer, right? So just like when you used to show a for sale by owner, before you wrote your offer, you would get that compensation agreement between broker and owner signed. Now you have to get the compensation agreement between brokers signed before you write the offer, because you're documenting the fact that the seller is going to pay you commission through the listing broker. Okay. So you just, fill it out, right? Property address, who's the name of the client, when does this start? You put the day you're writing the offer through the end of the buyer's rep agreement. And then whatever amount that the seller has agreed in the listing agreement to offer goes in this blank. And then the listing broker and the buyer's broker sign it. And it's just a document saying, yes, we have a listing agreement that says the seller will pay buyer broker commission. This is what it is. Listing broker signs it, buyer broker signs it. We're good to go. So anytime that the seller has agreed to pay commission to another broker in the listing agreement is when you need this document. So on most of your deals, you're going to need this document. This document, we always want it. The addendum regarding broker's fees does reference that this document has been signed. But you especially want it if you are the buyer's broker, because it is the only way to protect you where the listing broker has agreed the amount that they're paying you from the listing agreement. So because that used to be in the MLS, we didn't need it, but now that that's not, we need this document as the buyer's broker to protect us and document what the seller has agreed to pay in the listing agreement. So you don't need this on every single deal, but you need it anytime the seller has agreed to pay a buyer's broker. So the times that you're not going to need this document are in intermediary situations, right? Because there's not another broker involved. That doesn't mean the buyer's broker is not going to get paid. It just means that the buyer's broker is Rick Freeman, and that's already covered in the listing agreement. So you don't need it in intermediary. You don't need it when there's an unrepresented buyer, right? Because there's not another broker to pay. So that will not be a part of the deal. Those are the times when you don't need it. Or if, the buyer is paying their broker directly and not asking the seller to pay anything or the listing broker to pay anything, you don't need it. So those are the only times. So those are going to be, pretty narrow exceptions. But for the general rule of thumb, when you're doing a deal with an agent from another brokerage, you need it. You especially need it when you're on the buy side. Okay, I hope that helps and makes sense. So now we're going to talk about the addendum regarding broker's fees. So let's take a look at that one. And this is document 2406. You can see we're using the new version, 823. And basically, the question is, when do I need this document? So this document you're going to need on pretty much every deal, unless neither the seller nor the listing broker is paying any fees towards the buyer's broker. So if you are in a situation where the buyer is said, I don't want commissions to be a factor, I'm going to pay you totally separately under our buyer rep, then you're not going to need the addendum regarding broker's fees, and you're not going to need the compensation agreement between brokers. The addendum regarding broker's fees is basically a document. You can see it signed by the buyer and the seller that kind of documents who's paying who how much. And the listing broker might be contributing some out of what was agreed in the listing agreement. Or you may be asking seller into B to be contributing some amount to the buyer's broker's fees. Whether that's to supplement what's already been offered, or seller wasn't offering anything at all, and now you're asking them here to pay directly to the other broker. So that's when you're gonna need it. It'll be, like I said, it's probably gonna be used on almost all of your deals where the seller is paying some part of the broker's fees. Now, I'm gonna put one little wrinkle in here just for fun. With respect to intermediary situations, only if what is provided for in the listing agreement does not cover what is provided for in the buyer's rep. So if I have a listing agreement for 5%, which is 3% to me as a listing broker and 2% to the other broker, and Angela brings me an offer and her buyer's rep is for 2%, then we don't have to execute anything else because my listing agreement covers the full fee, my 3% and her 2%, and we're good to go. The listing agreement covers it. We really don't need any other documentation other than maybe an email between me and Angela just confirming that she's going to get paid 2, which is what her buyer's rep says, and I'm going to get paid 3. But if my listing agreement says 5%, 3 and 2, and her buyer's rep says 3%, then she's short a percentage still under the listing agreement. And then we need to use this addendum, and she's gonna have to write, she's gonna call me before and say, hey Z, I'm writing an offer on your listing. My buyer's rep is for 3. What do you have? And I'm gonna be like, ugh, my seller has only agreed to 2, but write the offer and put it in there and we'll see if we can get it. She's gonna write her offer and add this form, even though it's intermediary, and she's gonna ask for that extra 1% right here. So that's the only time when we need this additional documentation in an intermediary situation, is when the listing agreement amount does not cover what the buyer's rep says, and we need to ask for that same amount. So in essence, paragraph E of this addendum regarding broker's fees is the same as D2B, except that D2B is for other brokers and E applies to intermediary situations. So that's the only time when you're gonna need additional documentation in an intermediary situation. So hope that helps. I realize this stuff can be confusing, but I wanted to give you guys like a short answer of when you need what. General rule of thumb, you're gonna need both documents on most of your deals. There might be a few situations when you don't. So I'm gonna stop there. If you have questions, call or ask. Okay, thanks.